Hi, this is Math is Easy with Mr. Smith. Today's lesson is on building and solving equations. Eric and his friend Dwayne think it would be fun to throw water balloons at their friend Layla, so he invites her over to his house. Layla says, okay, but she is bringing friends. Layla arrives with her friends Patty and George. She sees all the balloons that Eric and Dwayne have and says, this isn't fair. Eric solves the problem. Each of your friends should make 2 balloons. Do you see how he solved the problem? Eric used an equation. Let's check that out. Eric just thought of all the different variables and numbers and put them down in an equation. See, Patty, he didn't know anything. George, he wasn't sure. Layla had 5, Eric had 5, and Dwayne had 4. It looks like an equation. So we'll use n for our variable. So we have n for Patty and n for George and 5 for Layla, which equals 5 for Eric and 4 for Dwayne. We can simplify this equation by combining some of the terms. The 2 n's add up to 2n and 5 for Layla, and Eric and Dwayne add up to 9. So that's our equation. 2n plus 5 equals 9. But Layla is still confused. Okay, I understand the equation, but how did you solve it? Simple. I used opposites and inverses. Oh yeah, I remember those. I remember on the number line, every number has an opposite. So 1 has -1. Those are opposites. If you start with -5, then the opposite is 5. When you add opposites, the answer is always 0. So -1 and +1 equals 0, and -5 and +5 equals 0. An inverse is just the same fraction, but flipped upside down. If the fraction is 3/2, the inverse is 2/3. Or, if the fraction is 7/10, the inverse is 10/7. If you have an integer like 2, first you need to convert it to a fraction, 2/1. Then it works the same. 2/1, the inverse is 1/2. When you multiply the inverses, the answer is always 1. 3/2 times 2/3 is equal to 6/6, which is equal to 1. 2/1 times 1/2 equals 2/2, which is also equal to 1. But how do I use them to solve equations? First, imagine your answer. You're starting with 2n plus 5 equals 9. You want to end up with something that looks like 1n is equal to your answer. That means this side of the equation turns into this, and this side becomes your answer. 2 steps will make this change. Step 1, change 5 to 0. Step 2, change 2 to 1. 2 steps. Step 1, change 5 to 0. Step 2, change 2 to 1. For step 1, we use the opposite. The opposite of +5 is -5. So we're going to subtract the 5 from one side, and that will give us the 0. The properties of equations tell us that what we do to one side, we must do to the other side. In this case, we'll need to subtract 5 from 9, which will give us 4. So now our equation looks like this. 2n equals 4. If you're good at mental math, you might want to use this method. Notice that I knew I was combining the opposites, which would give me a 0, so I put an x through the positive 5, and then subtracted 5 from the other side of the equation. Notice that we get the same result, 2n equals 4. I like this method a little better, but you use the method which works the best for you. Now we're ready for step 2. To change 2 to 1, multiply by the inverse of 2. The inverse of 2, or the fraction 2 over 1, is 1 over 2, or 1/2. So we're going to multiply 1/2 times 2, and because of our property of equality, we also need to multiply the 4 times 1/2. 1/2 times 2 is equal to 1, and 4 times 1/2 is equal to 2. Now the equation looks like this, and we have our answer. 1n equals 2. Here's another method for step 2 if you're good at mental math. I know the inverse is going to change the 2 to 1, so I simply put an x through that and then multiply the other side of the equation times 1/2. In either case, the equation looks like this. 1n equals 2, and your answer is n equals 2. I think I got it. Let me try another one. 3n subtract 4 is equal to 11. Step 1 will change the negative 4 to 0. Step 2 will change the 3 to 1. To change the negative 4 to 0, use the opposite. The opposite is positive 4. Notice that I used the same technique. I canceled out the negative 4 and added 4 to the right side of the equation. Now the equation looks like this. 3n equals 15. In step 2, we're going to change 3 to 1 by multiplying by the inverse. In this case, the inverse is 1 over 3. I cancel the 3 and multiply 15 times 1/3. That gives me an answer of 5. The equation looks like this. 1n equals 5, which is our answer. Let's review. Use the opposite and the inverse. Imagine your answer. Use the two-step process. Add the opposites. Multiply the inverses. And remember, math is easy. It's a good idea to practice your skills after you learn them. The next slide shows 6 problems. Pause the video, then try doing all 6 problems, then check the answers, which follow the problem.